Cities Skylines 2 is back, their first update in over a month. On the upcoming patch and some broader context, Colossal Order spill the beans on those creator packs that are still missing, as well as some info on the console release. Primarily though, in this video we're focusing on patches, the economic rework, and some broader changes and feedback that's been gathered for Cities Skylines 2. So sit back and relax, and let's jump straight into the good stuff. And we begin today's journey with a discussion about the economy, a hotly anticipated rework that is promised to add more depth, more detail, and a better understanding around the economy, so it's not just a face value pretty thing to look at. They say that the initial implementation of the rework is done, and the patch is currently being polished. The feedback they've received on it so far suggests it's headed in the right direction, and they say they're excited to share it. The patch, however, will not address everything. To ensure it meets our expectations, they say they want to give it a few more weeks so that they can take some action on more feedback that they've received, particularly from that beta group. The goal is to address community feedback more broadly that they've received in terms of the economy, increasing the importance of managing the economy, increasing the challenge, the difficulty behind it, and making it clearer to the player how the economy is affected by your choices. Just the things that I was highlighting at the beginning of the section. They aim to release the patch within a broad window, starting June 3rd and making its way through to June the 19th, over a couple of weeks there. And they'll be detailing the update in further developer diaries. So, shameless plug, be sure to subscribe and blah blah blah, so that we can discuss that together. The important thing to note here, it's coming sometime in June. If history is anything to go by, probably the later part of that window. Let's say it's releasing around the middle of June, and that is the next patch. They also go on to share some more insights into future updates, but first we're going to talk about some free DLC, some region-based DLC, 8 packs in total. You might remember from way back when, over, I believe, 200 days ago now, or something insane like that, when Cities Skylines 2 launched, they teased creator packs, as I've discussed, stretching across a whole load of different regions, giving some crucially needed diversity, in my opinion, to the game's set of buildings. An update on this one is that they'll be pushed out to post-summer, Northern Hemisphere summer, middle of the year. Even though the creator packs require relatively little time for implementation from Colossal Order, they say, we want to make sure the upcoming economy patch has the intended result, and that we have time to also evaluate your feedback before we release any new paid content, and this means that the creator packs will move to release after the summer lock. What is the summer lock? Well, they say in accordance with Swedish and Finnish vacation laws and union agreements, both Paradox Interactive and CO observe a general holiday period during the month of July and parts of August, where employees have the right to 4 consecutive weeks of vacation. That will make some, I'm guessing, American viewers particularly jealous. They say this means that our staffing levels are reduced on development and publishing, and therefore to avoid scheduling any updates during the time period, and in fact that's what they're going to do. As there's always a risk when patching a game, we always want to have the necessary personnel available in case a critical bug is introduced and we can't fix it in a reasonable time frame. Hence, they don't plan any patches or updates in July or August. Long story short, what is the summer lock? It's a summer vacation, and they're going to not be releasing anything during that period because they'll be running off a skeleton crew. Okay, so the creator packs that we just discussed then will be pushed out after that holiday period, which, as we've just discussed, stretches into August. What does that mean? Well, realistically, September plus. So we're looking towards the later half of 2024. Speaking of looking toward the later half of 2024, they also share some information about upcoming patches, the kind of big oversight stuff that you might be interested in. I certainly was. Let's talk about it. The primary economy patch that we talked about at the start of the video is scheduled to release soon, and it of course has that economic focus. However, there are other requested improvements that they're working on. such as and including an update to the building upgrade system. This means that we'll be able to place building upgrades more freely around the main building and also delete or move specific upgrades. Very important, because the way that this exists at the moment, or doesn't exist, is quite frustrating. Here's looking at you, in particular, the medical clinic, I think, is the most annoying one. I don't know, there's about a handful. They say that they'll provide detailed patch notes in connection to the patch, as per usual. The next patch, expected after that summer break, so after mid-August, stretching into September perhaps, will introduce some free content and other frequent requests. This includes new service buildings and vehicles to go along with them. And I get a hallelujah, as well as the addition of a surface tool to allow more freedom to paint the areas around your buildings. A nice way, hopefully, to hide some things, a vanilla tool inside of the game to help us do that. They say that they're also making progress with technical difficulties that are blocking the release of the asset editor. They can't confirm if it will be ready for the first patch after summer, so no promises yet, but they are doing everything they can, they say, to make it so. So potentially looking around September. And of course, a lot of the deadlines that they've set, or at least many of the big ones, actually fall in October. So there's a little bit of breathing room there, stretching out to October 2024. Speaking of which, let's now move through and talk about a crucial update that might not affect all of you, but definitely affects some, because I see it in the comments on almost every update. It's the consoles. The long-delayed and somewhat troubled cousin of the PC version of Cities 2 is the console version. Here's an update. They say that they've had a beta build delivery at the end of April, which has undergone extensive performance and stability tests. The results from that testing showed that they're not hitting stability and performance targets that they want to reach. Fixing the crashes and improving the FPS is the highest priority when it comes to the console builds. The development team is working diligently and has already fixed some of the issues from the tests, and they hope that they can keep the timeline for that crucial October release. However, there is a caveat, credit to them, at least it is open and honest and transparent. They say, quote, "But to set expectations, the window for an October release is shrinking, and it might have to be delayed further," end quote. There doesn't need to be a lot of reading between the lines here to figure out that October release is still a possibility. They haven't scratched it completely, but they're not just leaving a window open, but they've opened the whole goddamn French sliding door to the fact that this thing might actually be delayed a bit further. And to set that expectation fairly clearly here, I can only imagine that they want to get it out as soon as they can. This will be as shocking as it seems to say out loud, coming up toward Christmas and the holiday period, not the summer holidays that they're taking now, but the next holiday period. So there's also probably a lot of drivers around that and other dates too. Long ramble short, maybe we can still expect an October release for consoles, though it seems increasingly less likely that that will be the case. Finally, they share a point on player feedback. And I also wanted to share a point just before that this is the first update that we've heard, I think, in like a month, right? There was that sort of a new way forward about 5 weeks ago. There was a patch release almost a month ago to the day at the time of recording this video, and then nothing. So there is a little bit of a change of pace. I mean, they've signaled it, they've reflected this already, so it's not a surprise. But perhaps the optimistic view here, a little bit more of a heads down, bums up, working, updating you when we can, and hopefully still holding true and being honest. And we've seen a little bit of that uncomfortable honesty already in the console section. Let's talk about player feedback. They say 2 groups testing the patches and providing feedback before it rolls out to the plebs, public, you and I. They have a long-standing group of dedicated modders and a newer group of community representatives and prominent modders who joined through the application process last year. So 2 different groups. One of them recently stood up, that latter one, in response to seemingly a lot of the difficulties around what has been the launch and subsequent post-launch of Cities 2. They say that they recently held a more intimate meeting with representatives from the community, who shared their insights and conveyed those of their follower base on what they wish to see in the game. Once the economy patch is out, they will also launch a survey. Who doesn't love a good survey? To gather feedback from you and me, the broader community. They say that this will ensure that they can understand, experience, and continue to head in the right direction. They'll also continuously be reading posts that we share on official channels and appreciate the good, constructive feedback that they've received over the last few weeks. And they round out this section by saying thank you for being part of the community, for your passion. Stay tuned for further updates on the economy patch and a timeline for upcoming patches and new content. And that concludes their verbal written update, I should say, today. And I'd like to close quickly on some of my thoughts. The economy patch will be big, very important, not to the structure of Cities 2, the performance, which actually has seemed to have improved. In particular, I noticed on my last video a month ago, many of you in the comments said that you had noticed an improvement. I ask every time, please share if it works for you. A lot of the time I hear people saying no. Last time I felt like there were more yeses than no's, so maybe that's a good thing. Actually ensuring that the economy isn't just a facade, just kind of a face value, hey look, come to our town and look how beautiful it is, but actually it's just a big bit of cardboard hiding a slum is very important. So there'll be a lot of focus and attention on that patch. Probably unfortunate news for our console friends who are likely to see more delays before the game releases to them. And of course there'll be that stand down period from July through into early August where we shouldn't expect to hear a lot, not just for Cities 2, but more broadly probably across the Paradox titles. And that largely rounds out my thoughts. A lot of wait and see. I'll be particularly interested in this new updated timeline, the third or fourth perhaps iteration of an updated timeline for Cities 2, but we'll have to wait to find out more about that. Thank you very much for joining me. My first video back in a few weeks, after a few weeks away. It's, well, you know, I'm back. So I'm back. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you in the next one.